Hello, 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 and welcome back to our weekly Sunday school lesson. I am Elder Latanya Milliken of the All Nations Church in Oakland, California. My pastor is Bishop Terrence L. Milliken, and this is Sunday School. Lesson 2 in our spring quarter. The date of the lesson is March the 12th, 2023. And the traditional lesson is in the book of Matthew, the 4th chapter, the 1st through the 14th verse. The subject is overcoming temptation with the word. And I tell you, the word is powerful and so very, very important. That's why we share it, we teach it, we preach it. We ask you to read it and meditate on it every day because the word is what is going to keep us and cause us to grow and to continue to build that relationship with our Creator and with one another. And before we get started, I'm going to deviate a little bit. It's Women's History Month, and I shared a wonderful story last week about Deborah, the distinguished judge, and this week we're going to share another woman in the scripture. But before we do that, I want to just give you a shout out if you're celebrating anything this week, or happy birthday to you, happy anniversary, and if you're welcoming a new member of your family, God's blessings in your life, in your celebration, and His special favor. Now, what I'm going to ask of you is to keep the Milliken and the Daniels family in your prayers. We lost 2 family members here in California. Our family is primarily Louisiana, some in Texas, some in California, kind of like all over the place. But it's been a while since we've lost some California families. So keep us in your prayers. We appreciate your prayers. Thank you so much for your condolences as well. Now let's get into our lesson. We are going to be talking today about Esther. We're going to be talking about some queens today. Esther, the balance of power, and I'm going to kind of cover the entire book of Esther. Just when you have an opportunity, read the book. Oh my God, it's such an amazing story. So it's a lengthy story. I'm going to try to get some high points just to drive home and just to share with you her contributions as a woman in the scripture. And so again, last week we talked about Deborah and how she helped individuals individually, when they would come to her, she would judge their matters, but she also helped her nation. She accepted her calling and was a phenomenal judge, the only female judge for the children of Israel. And so we salute her in history. And again, this week, I'm sharing these stories with you because, ladies, you too can make a difference. I encourage you to accept your calling, whatever your calling is. God has a plan for each and every one of us from the beginning of time. He knew you would be here. You are not a mistake. And He knew and He had a plan for you. And so I just hope these stories are encouraging you. And I want to encourage you that to walk in your calling, hold your head up high. Honestly, I feel like every woman should be treated like a queen and every man should be treated like a king. And so this is a phenomenal story, and we're gonna learn a little bit about some queens today. And so let's get started on our story about Esther the queen. And so we all know that a queen is a female ruler of an independent state, especially one who inherits the position by right or by birth. The wife or widow of a king or a tribal chief. And I say tribal chief, well, because that's in the dictionary. But when I think about the women of African descent, we not that others aren't queenly, but we are queenly because there were queens. Queen was more of a commonality because there were so many queens in the villages in Africa, and there's I have a list of queens, but due to I only have 20 minutes to share, but there were so many phenomenal queens in Africa, military leaders in Ethiopia, Nigeria, in Egypt, and South Africa, and in Ghana. All of them had queens. Just do your research. But today we're going to stick to the queens in the scripture, and we're going to talk about a story. And I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you this just it sparks the queen in you, and that the queen will come out in you. And so the story begins with the King Xerxes. So the children of Israel had disobeyed, and the Lord had allowed the king of Babylon to conquer them. And there were 3 campaigns that helped them migrate to Babylon. And time went by, and then the Persians and the Medes conquered Babylon, and so they were all together there. And now, so the king at this particular time in this story is the king of the Persians and the Medes, and his name was Artaxerxes. And so he ruled over 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia at that time. And in the 3rd year of his reign, he made this feast. And all of the officials and the servants and the powers of Persia and Media, and the nobles and the princesses all came to this big old party that lasted 180 days, so that he could show off his kingdom and his riches, and so that they can also plan on how they were going to go into battle with the Greeks. Now, toward the end of this celebration, the king had a celebration with just the last 7 days. He had this celebration with just the people in the citadel, and great to small. And the banquet was high end. They had gold vessels, all of them one of a kind, and there was wine. Unlimited amount of wine. And so on the last day, he summons his queen. Her name was Vashti, to come, and he told the eunuchs, go get the queen and put a crown on her, and have her come in so the men can see her. And they went to go get her, and she didn't come. She was not coming, because she was hosting her party and feast with the women, because the men and the women could not mix. In fact, the Persian monarch insisted upon deference, which is a submission. So this was a condition of submitting to the espoused. And there was this legitimate influence on one's superior or superiors, this reverence. And so not even the queen, Vashti, was allowed to come to the throne room unless she was summoned. And so the king, so you had to be summoned, or you had to be, you couldn't come on your own, or you had to be invited. So the queen didn't come. And not only did that anger and embarrass the king, but it also had the men feel a certain kind of way, because they felt like, well, if Queen Vashti disobeys the king, and the women and our wives find out that the queen got away with that, then they're going to try to get away with not obeying us. Something had to be done about what she did. And so the king sat with his counselors, and immediately they, because they knew this was a huge disaster, so they decided that she broke the law in front of everyone. And so the king made a decree that Vashti would no longer come before the king, and her position would be given to another person better than her. So the word went out in every language, because again, you had the Jews, you had the Medes, you had the Persians, you had the Babylonians. And so the word went out. about this decree so that the women would not, begin disobeying their husband. And then more time went by, and so a contest. They had a contest to get a new queen. And all of the providence sent their best their version for this contest to pick a new queen. And so a woman by the name of Esther, a young lady by the name of Esther, was chosen. Now, a little bit about Esther. Esther did not have royal blood. She was very beautiful. She was an orphan. She was raised by an older relative we call Mordecai. And Mordecai worked in the palace, so he knew politics, and he taught her. He taught her how to read. So she wasn't this ordinary woman, because most women didn't. They learned how to cook and take care of the women, but many of them didn't learn how to read and write. But she learned how to read, how to write. She knew, she got news from the palace, so she understood sort of the things that happened in the palace. She was a woman of wisdom. She knew when to ask questions, what questions to ask. And not only that, but she took wise counsel and wise wisdom when she received it. And so we've got this beautiful, smart woman who understands how the palace work and how the rules and the laws work. And she goes into this contest with all of these other women. And so in the contest, the women went through this 12-month preparation. I love this part of the story. 12-month preparation. 6 months of oil and myrrh, and 6 months with just perfume and beautification. And whatever garment that or clothes they desire from the palace, they were able to keep, and whatever jewelry they decided to wear that night, they were able to keep. And so I just want to pause right here because I really like this part of the story. I've always liked this part of the story where the women had this 12-month beauty preparation. I just really, oh my God, that you should be able to pamper yourself at frequently, ladies. And don't feel bad if you take a little extra to get dressed, because these women took a year to spend one night with the king. And I tell you, when I read the preparation that they did, what they did to their skin and to their hair, it's truly amazing. If you have time to dig into that, read it. I mean, it's just amazing. And the spices and the herbs and the perfume that they use, just wonderful. So take your time to get dressed and beautify yourself, I tell you, because there's a queen in you and there's a queen in all of us. All right. So so when it was Esther's time, Esther, she had found favor with the master in the harem part, and he gave her maidens. He gave her the best room, but she was smart enough to ask, because she didn't know the king, but she knew the eunuch knew the king. So she asked the king, "What does he like? What's his favorite color?" And so he shared with her the secrets, and she took it to heart. And so when she went into her night with the king, she won his favor. And she was a Jew, but her relative Mordecai told her, "Don't tell anybody you a Jew. Don't tell anybody where you from. Just go in there and be you." And so she did. She took his advice. She was a smart woman. So she won. And so now she's the queen. She's the queen, but she understands she cannot come into the king's presence unless she's called, unless she's summoned. And so she's just living out her life as a queen. In the meantime, in between time, Mordecai, and I'll try to make this as quickly as I can. Mordecai discovers these two men that were going to assassinate the king. And so he tells the queen, and the queen tells the king, and the men are hung. And so to replace them was a man named Haman. And Haman, when he was appointed to his new role, the king said people had to bow down to him. Well, Mordecai was, working alongside in the palace, but Mordecai would not bow down, because bow down as a Jew could potentially be idolatry. So when Haman found out that Mordecai was not bowing down, he got mad. So he went to the king and he told the king, there's these people who laws are different from ours, and they don't obey your laws, O king. Let me kill them, and if you allow me to destroy them, I will give 10,000 talents to the palace treasury. So the king, not knowing what was going on, signed a decree that on a specific day these people would be destroyed, or anyone could fight them or take their possessions. And so when Mordecai found out what happened, he collaborated with Esther. And so Esther, and he told her, you gotta go in to the king. And so she says, I can't go into the king. No one can go into the king unless they're summoned. If I go into the king, then I will lose my life. And so Mordecai told her, and this is a really, really, really important point. He says, well, if you don't go into the king and help save the Jews, then we will be saved by someone else, and your family, you and your family will not will not survive this, because who knows that you came to the palace for such a time as this. And so there's purpose. There's purpose in who we are. There's purpose when God elevates us to a role, to a position. There's his plan is in when you are a believer and you love the Lord and you are following in his plan for your life. There may come a time where you have to stand. You may have to put your life on the line to help others. And so this is what happened to Esther. And so Esther called a fast. Here's where we see her leadership skills coming. She called a fast for everyone. Come on, let's all pray. Let's fast together. And she says, if I have to die for my people, then I will go in the presence of the king. And so after 3 days, she went into the presence of the king. He saw her coming, and the Lord gave her favor. And the king extended his sepulcher to her to allow her. And he says, what is it, Esther? What do you want? Whatever you want, I'll give it to you, even if it's half of the kingdom. And so she used her strategy to formulate. She invited him to a banquet, him and the enemy who was against the Jews. And so she had this banquet. Then she invited her to another banquet. And then once she got the full attention, she told the king, there's this man that wants to destroy my people. And the king said, well, who is this man? He says, Haman, right here. And so the king was so upset, he left out of the banquet room. And in the meantime, Haman he went to the queen. He was begging her for his life, and he tripped and fell, and he fell into her lap. And right when he fell into her lap, the king walked in and says, what are you doing? You gonna try to assault the queen right while I'm here? And so he had Haman hanged. And I tell you, just it seems like a flowery story, but the point I want to make is that there are times in your life that you need to use what God has given you to help others. It may be your beauty. It may be your talent. It may be your skills. It may be your finances. Whatever it is that God is calling you to use to help build the kingdom, get the word out, help others, walk in your destiny, it's going to cost you something. It cost Esther having to put her life on the line, but she was willing to do it. And so I just want to encourage each of you today to just to really allow that queen in you to come to the surface. Take care of yourself. Spend time beautifying yourself, and don't feel bad about it. Spend time, making yourself happy, and spend time with the Lord, understanding what his will is in your life and the destiny he has for you. We need you. We need you. We need you. Stand up, queens, all over the world. God bless you. Until next week, we may be talking about another woman in the scriptures, or we may go back to our lesson, and that lesson is doing the Father's work in John the 5th chapter. So be ready next week. Hope you enjoyed our lesson today. God bless you.